everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and this is a new project I made. The reason I made it, we'll go back a little bit, is I made a mini album using The Beach is Calling. Here's the mini album. It's in a separate video. I'll link it up at the top. So if you click on that when you're done with this video, you can go check that out. But I had some leftover paper, and my policy is once I've opened a paper pad, I can't put it away. I need to use it all. And I didn't have that much to do another mini album, really didn't have enough to do a folio, because I had small pieces. So I said, you know what? I'll just go to Graphic 45, and whatever project is their first project is the one I'm going to do. So the project that I saw is one from Tati Scrap, and she made this kind of mini album using Life's a Bowl of Cherries. I'll link that in the description box. I guess I'll link the Graphic 45 page or post or whatever I can link to show you what she made. And she did sort of a little process video, and so there was enough from there for me to make this. I did not use her measurements because her measurements were in metric. And I wanted to make it a different size again because of the scraps I had. So this is what I made. So it measures, it's about 4¼ by 6¼ so it will fit sort of 4 by 6 photos with a little cutting down. So I'll show you the side. She had a bigger handle on the side of hers, but I didn't have that in my stash, so that's what I have. There's his layered. She had fabulous layers, which were really thick and wonderful, but uh, I just went with some smaller layers and just did my own thing. But there are layers here. First I have some shells. I ended up hot gluing them on. Under the shells is a little piece of burlap. It actually is a piece of ribbon that I just cut apart. I've got some of the matte gems. I forget what Graphic 45 calls it. But I have a couple there. Then I had this in my stash. It was similar to what she had on her cover, but I just cut a little piece, put a couple of layers of thin chipboard below it to make it pop. These are brads that are just cut off. And then this is a cut apart on white paper. There's this gorgeous what the heck is that? Starfish paper below it. And then I have 2 layers of chipboard that I wrapped with some, it was self-adhesive or adhesive fabric, and it's sort of a linen color. This was a frame from the Tags and Frames. This was a chipboard element. This is on part of what is the whole uh, binding system. And I'll show you that in a little bit. So again, there's the side. This is popped up. This was one of the cut aparts, and I took another one of these cut aparts and faced it just so it was symmetrical. Here's the back. You can see what that fixture there. And there's the bottom. Now, the way it works is the ribbon is so you can pull this out. So there are, let me pull this off, a bunch of pages in here, and these are 4 by 6. I'll show you how I put it together, but I'll warn you, you have to do it upside down. You'll see when it comes to doing it. You have to do it upside down. But here's another one of the frames. Here's another chipboard element. I layered some paper on some thin chipboard, very thin chipboard, and used that. Now you've got some plain paper. This was just a piece of what was left over from the pattern paper I had. I took one of the cut aparts and made a little pocket out of it. So more plain paper, which you could use to add photos or journal. I just put some of the pattern paper in there, some of the white cardstock. So that was a chipboard element and a piece of a border strip. And this is on thin chipboard. More more. So as you can still add photos, and there's still room in the book. It's not really that thick, but I will tell you, you don't need to put in all of these pages. Just trying to turn this to get it out of the way. So here's a frame. Here's one of the chipboard pieces that just was a little cut apart. There's that bathing suit paper. I had fun with that, and you can see what I did in my mini album if you want to go check it out. There's an extra shell. That's where it went. All right, some more paper. This is another chipboard piece. I did put a couple of strips of paper, one of the chipboard elements with some fun fur ribbon, and I cut out one of the surfboards. I'll show you the back of these in a little bit too. Some more paper to put your photos on. And even though I have a decorative element here, you still can put your photo there. It just makes it look pretty till you get there. I need to round some of these corners. Yeah, I didn't do that to all of them. All right, there's that. And then I'll turn it over just so you can see just a couple. So like the chipboard, this is the other side of the chipboard. I had two pieces, so I did one front, one back. Here's another piece of chipboard. I know it's hard to see because everything's all wonky, but there's another little card in a pocket. But anyhow, there's a lot of room to put photos and to do journaling. So what is this magical piece? It is, see if I can get one and show you. So that magical piece is called a threaded post with screw. I think you can get them in brass, but I picked up aluminum because to me it didn't matter. You really aren't going to see too much of it. Let me open it and show you. The one I got was 1.5 inch thick. I will link the Amazon link where you can get them. I also picked up, because I didn't know which size I needed, I picked up a 2-inch piece. So this is just the simple mechanism that holds it all together. So this screws in, and that goes in through all this. Of course, this is a 2-inch piece, so it's going to be a little bigger. So this spine is 1.25 inches, and this post for this one is 1.5 inches. So go for 1/4 inch bigger than what you need, I guess. Yeah, I would say go 1/4 inch bigger. I don't know if there's different diameters, but I'll list the links in the description box, so if it's something you want, you can get. So I'll show you really quickly the process that I used to make this. Um, I basically saw the pictures from Tati Scrap and used that to make it. I didn't, as I said, I didn't take her measurements because they were all in metric. I will tell you, as far as the amount of paper, I used 2 sheets of 12 by 12 and cut them down to 4 by 6. I don't know how many extra scrap papers I used, maybe another 10. And then I took one 12 by 12 lightweight chipboard and covered it front and back and cut that into 4 by 6 pieces. And that is all of what went in here. Now don't forget, I have chipboard in here as well. So it looks like it's bulky. And I suppose if I were going to put photos in there, I probably should take out some of the pieces. But let me show you how I made it. And thank you, Tati Scrap, for this fabulous idea. I was so inspired. I uh, hurried up and got to these little threaded posts and had fun making it. It just was something a little bit different. All right, let me show you how I made it. All right, I'm starting with an 11-inch by 3-inch piece of paper. This is what's on that side, although I could use that side, whatever you want to use. And then I have 2 pieces of chipboard. This one is 4 3/4 by 1.25 inches, and this one is 4 inches by 1.25 inches. So I'm going to, I already put some double-sided permanent adhesive on the back. So I'm going to put this down. I have spacers. I probably could have used those. Put the bigger one up on the top and then try to peel the backing off of the other one. And this one will go. So I want to make sure I have a gap. Now you could use something as a spacer. I'm just going to use another piece of chipboard. Actually, I'm going to use 2 thicknesses of chipboard. I want to make sure it doesn't I want to make sure it's not going to crack. So we go like that. And then I'm going to just fold and burnish on the score lines as if I'm covering a book. And I'm going to go like that. I don't know. Tati Scraps has it at an angle. Like it looks like a trapezoid. When it's all done. So I suppose I can glue it and then cut it down later. I'm going to put my adhesive, burnish, fold it down so my pieces nice and flat. Push that in. So I'm covering my chipboard. Okay, we're good with that one. I'll do the bottom one. And I put glue right up next to the chipboard. It helps it adhere to the side, and it also helps loosen up the fibers a little bit. All right, and then I'll grab my scissors and I will cut at an angle. There we go. Okay. Fold and burnish. And I'm going to make a cut about 1/8 of an inch away from where the edge of the chipboard is. So I've made a cut. I'm going to slightly miter. I'll take some off of the bottom and the top. Just slightly miter that cut. Because we want it to, when it's folded this way, we want to connect this. So that's what I'll do next. I'll glue this so that will be a right angle. So I decided to use my scoreboard so I get a nice straight edge. So of course I've got this mitered and I'm going to go against the scoreboard so that way it's a right angle. I guess before I do that I should add glue, and to make it adhere immediately I guess a double-sided tape would work as well. But I'm going to push against the edge and the side. So we have that one. Let me turn that upside down. A little cumbersome, but at least we know it's a good right angle. All right, so we have that. And before I go any further, I decided to cover the chipboard on the inside. I don't know how much it's going to show, but it most likely will be easier to do now than later. So I took a piece of 1 1/4 cardstock and put it on the inside top. I had scored it down at the bottom, and then I took another piece, the same length of the chipboard, which is 4 inches, 1 1/4, and that goes on the scored area, and it goes right there. Just to give it a more finished look. Okay, let's move on. All right, so I cut 4 pieces of pattern paper 6 by 8. We're going to cover 4 pieces of chipboard that are 4 by 6. What I'm doing is I will take my pattern paper, put it on my scoreboard, and then I have these 1-inch spacers. I got these from Country Craft Creations. I've also put a piece of double-sided tape on the back of my chipboard. I'm going to line this up to the edge of the spacer and to the top spacer. I can remove my spacers, remove my scoreboard, and I'm simply going to cover my book same way you would cover a mini album if you were to make a mini album. I'm going to burnish on those fold lines and then score the top and bottom. And there's a million different ways of doing this. Today I'm going to cut the square. I'm going to cut at a slight bevel right up to where the score lines meet. And this is from the 8 by 8 paper, but you, of course, could use 12 by 12. And this is where you can have fun in using some of the different pattern paper. So I'll put glue right next to the chipboard up at the top and zigzag it. I'll do the other side. Go right next to the chipboard around the outline of the piece and zigzag. It's just how I do it. You could do it however you want. Now I'm going to make sure that there's not going to be any overhang, so I push down and then I will go ahead and add more glue. And I'll go ahead and put the glue here. They're 2 small pieces. It's not going to dry. Take my bone folder, go up against the edge of the chipboard, use my fingers and pull it down. So there we have one piece covered. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other ones. I think my biggest decision is, do I want this side to show on one of the pieces, or you know what, I'm gonna let this side show and I can decide later exactly if I'm going to use it. I mean, I love this paper and that'll be great for a cover, but we're going to have layers on the cover. All right, go against the edge of your spacer. And the reason we cut this 2 inches bigger is because now there's 1 inch on all 4 sides, and it just makes it easier to cover. And so now I'm going to cover the other 3 4 by 6 inch pieces of chipboard. I'll leave some of the chipboard showing because we're going to glue these pieces back to back so you won't, when it's all done, see the exposed chipboard. All right, we're going to do the back first. So I am using this for the inside of the back. This is going to be for the outside. I made a little mark there. I'm down about I'll measure it in a second. I'm making a hole. It's about 5/8 of an inch from the side and 5/8 from the top. Now to make sure that it lines up, I'm going to just make a pencil mark here. I'll make a hole here. And we will line that up. So make sure you make the hole before you start adhering. So now I'm going to adhere this inside cover to the flap on our, what will we call this? Our L piece? Our right angle? Whatever you call it. We're going to adhere this to there. So this will go inside. And this is where you see whether or not your right angle is truly a right angle. And then I'll just burnish. Then we're going to put this on. And now you don't want to put this on and push it down against your surface because of this chipboard, it's going to be raised a little bit. You want to make sure you line up your hole. That's the most important part of this. So I will add glue. And I'm going to be fairly generous with the glue. It'll give me a little bit of room to move it if it's not perfect. And once it's on, it's going to be on. Okay. Make sure my design is in the correct orientation as well. And again, we'll line it up at the top and at the hole. And then to the side as well. Then I'm going to use clips to hold this in place while it dries. All right, let's let that dry. And let me show you how I'm going to decorate the front. We're going to do the same thing. This is the inside piece, and this is the outside piece. But and we don't need a hole in this. So before I adhere this, I'm going to decorate that. I think it'll be easier to do it now rather than wait till I need to adhere it. As part of my design, I've got this adhesive fabric, and I'm going to cover this chipboard. I painted it just so it's not so dark. Yeah, I mean, you barely will notice it. It's actually 2 layers of chipboard, and this measures 2 3/4 by 4 1/2. So I'm going to peel off the backing on this adhesive fabric. Now, if you don't have adhesive fabric, you could use a muslin, a linen, you could use cardstock, you could use linen cardstock, or you could just use some off-white cardstock. I just wanted to have a little bit of extra texture on this, and this matched really nicely. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to fold it, but I'm going to cut the corners. Cut the corners. I'm staying about a little more than 1/8 of an inch away just because this is 2 thicknesses of chipboard. Okay, and then I'm still going to use some glue just to make sure this will stay down. I'll add glue to this side. Alrighty. And then my idea is, so here's one of the pieces. I'm going to put this is from the chipboard frames, and then this is going to go on top of that, and I'm going to further decorate that.
High school cross country race today at Prospect Ski Mountain. Fun fact, did you know that some of our trails and dirt roads at the campground are used for cross country skiing during winter months? Hope had some better pictures of her cars today.
She did?
Yeah, you didn't see them?
I saw them. I didn't look. I didn't notice. So here I'm taking a piece of chipboard that's 1 inch by 4 inch, and I'm covering it with this blue paper. I'm going to add on top of the blue paper some decorative paper. It's got the seashells, and then um, it's got the two kinds of seashells. I put another strip of seashell on the other side just to make it symmetrical. And so that is going to be what I attach the handle to. Now the handle is really small. I got it at a local craft store. It's about 1.5 inches long. I'm attaching it to this chipboard with a couple of brads. And then I'm using a lot of glue just so the brads don't come undone. And that's where we get that decorative handle. All right, before I add the cover, I'm going to decorate it. So I've already got that linen down, and then I put some blue starfish paper, just about a 1/2 inch smaller than that linen. Then I've got this book plate. It's been in my stash for many years. I put just that little house on there, add a couple of pieces of thin chipboard below it, just so it is popped up a little. And then I'm adding brads. I can use my scissors to cut the legs of the brad so they don't stick out. And I add some glue so they don't twirl around. And then I will put that onto, well, I'll put it onto the cover, but I think at some point I realize I hadn't glued everything else down. I realize I hadn't glued everything else down. So here I put on the starfish paper. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact measurements, but like I say, it's about a 1/2 inch smaller than that linen square. And then there is a cut apart. I put it on a piece of the white cardstock just so it popped a little bit. And then there's that burlap ribbon. I just cut a little piece of it off and glued it on just to give everything a base. There I'm putting that book plate so it helps keep the burlap down, and as well it adds a little bit of a decorative element to the corner. Now I, of course, didn't decorate exactly the same as Tati Scraps. I would advise you to look at how she decorated her Life's a Bowl of Cherry albums. I have this thin jute twine that I am doing my best to tie a bow with my finger. Don't ask me how it's done. I am not an expert at it, but it works for me. So anyhow, I tie that. I just wanted just another texture on here. I just felt like it needed a little bit of a focal point. So I cut the strings. I'll glue that down, and then I'll add glue to glue my seashells. I eventually take out my hot glue gun though and put them down more permanently. I'm just trying to get placement at this point in time. Now, I decided I wanted some thicker pieces to go in my little album. I don't think Tati Scrapped used any thick pieces, but I just thought it would cut down on the single sheets of paper. So I'm taking a 12 by 12 piece of chipboard and a 12 by 12 piece of the pattern paper, and putting it on, I'll eventually cut off that branding strip at the top. So that is one side of it. And then I'm going to turn it upside down and add glue to the back and add another paper on the back. So that way I've got sort of a decorative sheet on one side and one that has some pattern to it, but ultimately it's really a blank slate for me to add some elements to, in addition to a base to put photos on. Off camera, I cut that chipboard into 4x6 pieces of paper. You can get 6 of them. And then I take my ink pad just to ink up the sides so they match with the blue. All right, let's talk about rounding the corners and making sure we have the hole in the right side. If you hold it in this orientation, the correct orientation, you're going to round the 2 top corners and the bottom left corner. The bottom right corner will be left alone. When you turn it upside down, that's where you're going to put the hole. So now that it's upside down, it's the top left corner. I would make a template and write top and bottom just so you can get the orientation correct. So, and also as a side note, the We Are Memory Keepers a hole punch is still a little bit too small for the aluminum post that I used. I had to punch the chipboard a couple of times just so it would fit. But once you punch it, nobody notices. Or you could take a straight edge and just sort of round it a little bit more. And we also need to punch holes in the front, the 2 pieces for the front. So that's the inside of the front. So the chipboard piece facing up is going to be punched in the top right corner, and make sure the orientation of the paper here is correct. I would put it on with a pencil first and then punch it. So I'm adding glue here a lot to the a lot so then it will hold. I did have some double-sided tape to help it hold while the glue dries, and I'm going to put that on the back piece, that L piece. I probably should turn it upside down and burnish it a little bit. But what I'm going to do is grab the coordinating piece, the front cover, and again, I use some double-sided tape here, and I'm going to add glue in other areas, and then I will again use my little clips just to hold it and make sure it dries real tight on that. I don't know, maybe you could use rubber bands also. I don't know. Or maybe you could just glue it except for the where the L piece goes in. I don't know, but it worked for me. I had to fuss around with it a little bit to make sure the pieces were straight. All right, so we need a piece that has some ribbon on it to help pull it out of the book. So I am decorating uh, a piece to go on the very back page, and I'm going to put the ribbon on it. You'll see in a second after I finish decorating. This is the chipboard piece, and I'm going to glue some ribbon down, and then I have some red line tape that I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces off just to make sure it stays on real strong. Probably should have put it closer to the edges, but it'll work. Then I'll glue this piece on top of the ribbon. Then I'll round the corners. Of course, you have to turn it upside down so you round the correct corners. So you round both of the bottom corners, which would have been the top. And then since that ribbon piece is going to go on the very last page, I'm going to make sure I round the correct corners. Then I'm going to load everything up, putting that little aluminum post in from the front, and then load up the pages in the back. So I just put like a chipboard piece and then a couple of plain pieces and then a decorative paper piece and then another plain piece or a couple and then chipboard pieces. Make sure that ribbon piece is at the very end, and then I will screw on that threaded post. Use my screwdriver to get it tight, and then you can tie bow. I have that too close to the bottom. I'll move it up. I have some of the Graphic 45 matte pearl gems that I'll put on. I put one on the post as well. And then it is done. All you need to do now is add some photos and share it with your friends and family. I hope you enjoyed this process video, tutorial, whatever you want to call it. It's my version of the project made by Tati Scraps. It was listed on the Graphic 45 page. Again, the links will be in the description box. I was able to use the rest of the paper that I had after I made this mini album. Don't forget, there is a link for this also in the description box. And while you're at it, check out what other tutorials and fun projects I have on my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.